guys? Welcome back to Relaxed Running. I'm just out here on a nice little beach path doing some filming for the next video, and I was thinking about I had a comment from one of the Relaxed Running members just asking about how he should deal with the disappointment of not running to the level that he felt he was capable of in a 1500 meters last week. And it got me thinking, there's a heap of different ways that the top athletes in the world deal with the disappointment that they're facing after a run. Different for everyone, but in this video I wanted to walk you through a few helpful little strategies that not only I used when I was competing as a distance runner, but some of the strategies that some of the best runners in the world use when it comes to overcoming those frustrating experiences that we all have on the racetrack. Well, I think as a start point, the most important thing to recognize on this subject is when you're putting your heart and soul into something, when you're working really hard and things don't go the way that you planned for them to go, it's really disappointing. It's frustrating. It's hard to let go of. You question every element of what you do, and it's understandable. But I think sometimes we can get so caught up on the emotional side of a bad performance that we fail to see any of the positives. So in this particular little snippet, I wanted to share 3 strategies that I know are incredibly effective when it comes to dealing with those strategies. And the first one's inspired by Australian 1500 meter man Ryan Gregson. Recently on the Relaxed Running podcast, I asked him about how he deals with the difficult performances. Now, this is a 3:31 1500 meter runner, and he's also no stranger to disappointment, no stranger to frustration on the track. And he says one of the most effective things that he can do is he'll give himself an hour to deal with the frustration. So he'll finish the race, it didn't work out the way he wanted. He goes, all right, you've got an hour to get over it. And I think just putting a boundary on how long you allow yourself to be emotional is really helpful, because being emotional is exhausting. And if you're going to spend a day or 2 days, a week, a month, just venting and being frustrated over the race that didn't go as well as you wanted it to, then it's just going to start to take away from the future performances. So just limiting the amount of time that you allow yourself to feel disappointed for. Going, all right, I'm going to feel fully disappointed for an hour, and then I'm going to start to plan ahead. I'm going to start to look at what's coming up. It allows us just to refocus, to reset, and get back out there on the track ready to go. I think the next thing that you can look at, one of the most helpful ways of dealing with it, is going, all right, let's look at it without the emotion. So obviously it's all good and well to say I'm not going to get emotional after an hour, but if emotions creep back in, which they will, we're all human, we've got to just look at it a bit more objectively. So look at it, or plan to look at your race as though you're a stranger looking at your race. The disappointment's not so strong, the frustration's not so strong, and it allows you to get some clearer perspective on it. So what might that look like? Well, you might start asking yourself a couple of questions like, all right, what was the weather like? Was it windy? Is that why I didn't run fast? Was it wet? Was it a slow race? Was it a tactical race? Was I in the right shoes? Did I start too fast? Did I start too slow? Did I burn out? Did I train too much in the week up to it? What's more helpful than just getting emotional is asking yourself some questions around what you can improve for the next race. And if you can start to do that, if you can start to look at what it is that might have let you down, then it actually adds some tools into your arsenal. It allows you to go, all right, well, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm not going to be frustrated by that again. I'm not going to let that stop me in my next race. And man, we all have some bad races, but once we do, if you start to take note of what it is that you consider a bad race, and then why it was that you had a bad race, then you gradually get to eliminate that from your running. And once you get to eliminate that, you become a stronger athlete. I think one of the best ways that you can do this is through having a post-race journal or a training diary you can write it in. Now, in a training diary, it allows you to get those thoughts, that frustration out of your head and just onto paper. It's so often when we actually get what's in our mind onto paper, it doesn't look as scary, as frustrating, as intimidating as it is. So if you don't have any form of race reflection or training reflection, I'd encourage you to get yourself a little journal and just start to pay attention to the things that when you're running well you're doing, the things that when you're not running as well as you thought you should be that you're doing. Pretty soon you start to get a good list of things to improve and to apply to have you on the start line ready to race. And I think the last thing that I want to encourage you with is just because it was your most recent performance doesn't mean that that's a logo of or a sign of exactly where you're at. There'd been so many races in my life. In fact, 3 weeks before I ran 8:10 for 3,000 meters, I went out and I finished about 5th in a race running 8:18 and felt like I left everything on the track. And I was disappointed because I was thinking, man, I felt like I was in such better shape than that. I could have sworn I was a faster runner than that. And it turned out it was an off night. It was no real sign of where I was at as an overall athlete, but it was just a representation of where I was on that one night. So, hey, just because you've run a bad race, just because you've had a disappointing result, doesn't mean that that's your limit, doesn't mean that that's your ability. It just means on that day, with those conditions, that's where you're at. So, hey, you've got a new opportunity next time you get out on the track. So make sure you don't hold on to that one race so much that you can't look forward to the next opportunity that you have to step out and run well. Like any of this kind of talk, guys, there's a million different things that work for so many different people. For me, giving myself a time limit with emotion, looking at things objectively, planning for the next race are really beneficial to my performance. But I'd love to know what works for you. So let's get that conversation going down in the comments below. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure you give it a like, make sure you subscribe. There's plenty coming out. 2 videos a week on a Wednesday and a Sunday. So hey, subscribe and don't miss any of those. But guys, let's continue the chat down in the video below. Hey, keep your chin up, keep training hard, and keep looking forward to that next race, because just because you had one bad day doesn't mean that's where you're at. There's another opportunity just around the corner.